Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Aaron. The story of Miriam Ibrahim is headed for a happy ending. The Christian mother of two is out of Sudan and will soon head to the United States. But lawmakers and advocacy groups say the U.S. did very little to help Ibrahim and her family. In fact, they contend her case reveals the Obama administration's ambivalence towards religious freedom. Caitlin Burke reports.
Miriam Ibrahim is safe in Italy today. On Thursday, she and her family were allowed to leave the U.S. Embassy in Sudan, where they took refuge after her release from prison. Ibrahim's husband and children are American citizens, but it was the Italian government and the Vatican that negotiated her release, not the U.S. Tina Ramirez, founder of the religious freedom organization Hardwired, says that's unacceptable.
It is a matter of U.S. foreign policy under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 that we do care about religious freedom, whether it's for an American citizen or not an American citizen. But the fact that her husband is an American makes this case even more just unfortunate that the U.S. didn't get more involved from the beginning.
While Ibrahim was in prison, the Canadian government provided her with an air conditioning unit and some fans, and the British organized meetings with her legal team. But the U.S. didn't attend any of those. Ibrahim's case is only one example. Russell Moore, the president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission for the Southern Baptist Convention, says this is not the time for the U.S. to be taking a lax stance on religious freedom.
The entire world seems to be aflame right now with persecution, not only of Christians, but of religious minorities in all sorts of places.
But Republican lawmakers say the State Department is more concerned with pushing the LGBT agenda than they are with defending religious freedom. Moore says Obama's indifference is further exemplified by his failure to appoint a new U.S. ambassador for international religious freedom, a position that's been vacant since October.
And that sends a signal to the rest of the world that the United States isn't really taking this issue seriously.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
2 Christian aid workers died in a vicious attack on an Afghanistan street Thursday. World Watch Monitor reports gunmen on a motorcycle shot 2 women to death who worked for International Assistance Mission. They were sitting in a taxi in the heart of the city at the time. No word on who carried out the attack, but several Christian aid groups have been attacked in Afghanistan in recent years. IAM is an openly Christian group that serves the Afghan people through healthcare and economic development projects. It worked in the country for nearly 50 years. The women, both in their 50s, came to Afghanistan from their native Finland 16 years ago. A spokesman for IAM said the women had a profound reputation in Afghanistan and the country will be deeply affected by their loss.
Israeli military leaders say they've hit 45 sites in Gaza, including a Hamas military compound post. Israeli aircraft also killed a leader of the terrorist group Islamic Jihad and 2 of his sons. Caught in the middle of this conflict is Gaza's Christians. George Thomas has this report on one Gaza church that's serving its community in the midst of war.
With 3 days left before the end of Islam's month of Ramadan, police are taking no chances, stepping up security across the country.
We've mobilized a different number of units, and the last Friday of the Ramadan at the moment, our units are on standby.
Here in Jerusalem's old city, Shin Bet, Israel's equivalent of the FBI, is for the next 3 days on high alert, anticipating potential cyber attacks as well as violent protests. Overnight, in what some say were the largest protests in 3 decades, 10,000 Palestinians angry about Israel's offensive in Gaza confronted security forces near Jerusalem. 1 Palestinian was killed and 150 injured. Hamas has called for an uprising. Meanwhile, day 18 and Israel's operations in Gaza continue, as do Hamas's rocket barrage. Like Muslims in Gaza, Palestinian Christians are also suffering in this war.
We hardly go outside the house. There are missiles and rockets flying everywhere. Bombs going off. It's so scary.
In an exclusive phone interview from Gaza City, Ahmed described to CBN News what life's been like since the conflict started.
This situation is very dangerous. We only go out to buy food when there's a pause in the fighting. Even then, we're not sure if a missile will hit or not. However, we thank God none of the believers have been hurt or killed so far.
There are no reliable figures, but estimates put the number of Christians in the Gaza Strip at about 1,500. out of a population of nearly 2 million. Ahmed is a key leader in the evangelical community. Despite the chaos, he says Gazan Christians are quietly encouraging their fellow citizens.
We're sharing scripture verses with our neighbors, telling them Bible stories and using Facebook and text messages to encourage people not to give up. We only have Christ to depend on.
During a brief humanitarian truce this week, some 1,000 Palestinians, almost all of them Muslims, left their homes and sought refuge in one of the only 2 churches in Gaza. Nahid al-Sharfawi's home is in Sajaya, a suburb of Gaza, where Hamas had rockets, tunnels, and command centers. She said she received a recorded message from the Israeli military to evacuate the area to protect their lives.
We were given a warning that our house would be demolished, so we came here to the church and they told us it was safe.
The archbishop of the church says many, like Nahid, lost everything.
They get out from their houses with their clothes, just to carry their children, their babies.
Bishop Alexis has hardly had time to sleep, trying to ensure that his place of worship turned refugee center is meeting needs of the displaced.
First of all, water, to give food to the babies, milk, to give medicines, those who are in need.
Ahmed says the gesture by the Greek Orthodox Church has brought some unity.
Everyone's suffering in this conflict, Christians and Muslims. So when the church opened its doors, people all felt they were together.
During our conversation, Ahmed asked people around the world to pray for the church in Gaza.
There are 4 things you can pray for. We need wisdom on how to share the gospel with those who are broken and have lost everything. Second, pray for our protection. Third, we need endurance and strength to hang on. And fourth, for the Lord to open doors so we can meet the physical needs of people when this war is over.
George Thomas, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Hamas has fired thousands of rockets in its relentless attack on Israel, but very few are hitting their targets. The reason? The amazing Israeli defense technology that's shielding its cities. Chris Mitchell has a look at the Iron Dome.
It's been a game-changing defensive weapon, the Iron Dome.
Every time they are launching a rocket at the State of Israel, they are meeting a brick wall called the Iron Dome.
Some believe it's a godsend that protected Israeli lives.
And I take that as a testament, first of all, to a merciful and loving God, and second of all, to a merciful and loving God who's helped us develop the Iron Dome.
Iron Dome is a miracle, okay? An Israeli miracle. An invention we've had help from America, Raytheon.
It's remarkable to see the Iron Dome in action. Just behind me, you can see a small puff of smoke. Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border. The inventor of the Iron Dome says many rejected the concept.
I raised the idea of intercepting rockets. Everybody objected to the idea because it looks science fiction. But we established a team, and we get some money, and have started to work. Took us about 2 years to get all the money needed to full-scale development and buying fewer batteries. This is how they start.
To Gold, it was a matter of life and death.
The main purpose is to save human lives, Israeli lives, and also by delaying or not needed to do a massive ground operation, it saved other lives also. And it saved lives in Israel and the other side. So this is the main leaders. Without it, probably we have casualties.
It takes pressure off Israeli leaders.
Another contribution is strategic contribution. The system gives the high political echelon or army echelon time to think. There's Iron Dome, protect Israel, not 100%, but protect Israel, so they can think, they activate, like today, the Air Force or other Air Navy to try to stop it. Without ground operation, they can activate political powers, or they can prepare for war, cold reserve. They have time.
The Iron Dome shot down nearly 90% of rockets from Gaza. Though not 100% accurate, it's changed the equation of modern warfare. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Southern Israel.
French troops are guarding the wreckage of an Air Algeria plane that went down over North Africa Thursday. Flight 5017 disappeared over Mali airspace just an hour after taking off from Burkina Faso. No survivors have been found. Most of the 116 passengers were French citizens. The plane crashed close to a zone of conflict between Islamist rebels and the government. The FAA had warned pilots to stay above 20,000 feet to avoid being targeted. The pilots had asked to change paths because of bad weather. It's the third major international aviation disaster in a week.
President Obama is meeting with his Central American counterparts today to discuss the influx of young immigrants from their countries to the U.S. The meeting comes as Congress remains deeply split over proposals to stem the crisis on the border, and as the administration considers creating a pilot program granting refugee status to young immigrants from Honduras. The program would be limited and would start in Honduras, but could be expanded to include other Central American countries.
A dramatic decline in the number of abortions performed in Texas thanks to a new law. A study by the Texas Policy Evaluation Project shows abortions performed in the state are down by 13% over the last year. The study says the decrease is due to tougher state regulation of abortion clinics, which has forced many of them to close their doors. The new rules require abortionists to maintain hospital privileges within 30 miles of their facilities. 41 abortion clinics have closed down since the law went into effect.
Coming up, the threat to religious liberty right here in America, how the government is putting faith in the backseat.
The war in eastern Ukraine has sparked an unexpected consequence. The evangelical community is being targeted. While many people living in eastern Ukraine have been displaced, some evangelical pastors are still in the region, and at least 4 Christian men were killed just a few weeks ago. The president of Russian Ministries has said Russian separatists believe that evangelical churches are their enemies. In one of the towns, they even raised the Orthodox flag and said they would fight any heretic, any Protestant, anyone who represents any Western immoral values.
Joining us now with more is Sergei Rakuba of Russian Ministries. Sergei, tell us about this tragic incident with the ministers a few weeks back. What happened?
A few weeks ago, when the town of Slavyansk in eastern Ukraine was under the siege of these pro-Russian separatists, their militants, a group of armed guys, came into the church right during the Sunday morning worship service. They spotted this young, bright, nice-looking Christian leaders, dragged them out of the church, threw them in their truck, and drove away into an unknown location. A few weeks later, when the city was already liberated by the Ukrainian forces, the local people, actually Christians from the same church, in one of the pediatric hospital's backyard, they found this massive grave, and they discovered that their 4 young leaders were buried in that massive grave.
Sergei, why were these ministers killed? Was it because of their faith, or is there some other reason?
They use the tactics or strategy of intimidation and strategy. They, on purpose, create so much pressure, even publicly executing these young Christian leaders, so that they want to set lots of fear in the evangelical community.
How is this all related to the tension between Russia and Ukraine?
When Russia is supporting this pro-Russian separatist movement in eastern Ukraine, and they believe that they are fighting for their orthodox principles, values, and ideology, believing that they're fighting for against the European or world immoral influence that Ukraine, unfortunately, signing that agreement with the European Union, is letting into the area.
What's your ministry doing to help the people of eastern Ukraine?
Through our leadership training network, we call it School Without Walls, we mobilize hundreds of young Christian leaders that they work with their local churches. We provide resources. They pack food packs. This is the immediate and most urgent need for people that are refugees from that area, but also for the families that are trapped behind those war lines there. So we deliver hundreds and thousands of food packs to these people that are in a terrible need there for immediate assistance.
Sergei Rakuba of Russian Ministries, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Efrem.
Up next, smuggling the gospel into Iran in broad daylight. The borders are closed, but the airwaves are open, and there's little the mullahs can do to stop it. They are the most persecuted religious minority in Iran, Christians, especially those who convert from Islam.
Now one television channel is beaming a message of hope directly into Iran, and the Islamic authorities don't like it one bit. George Thomas brings us this exclusive report.
Take one.
These are very busy and exciting times at Mohabbat TV as it carries out its mission of broadcasting Christianity into Iran.
We're seeing a huge number of Iranians who are reaching out to our channel.
Mike Ansari oversees the popular channel. Since 2006, they've been beaming Christian programs via satellite to Middle East, Europe, and parts of Asia. But for Mohabbat's cast, crew, production, and office staff, their main focus is the Islamic nation of Iran.
Many of our viewers that are contacting us from Iran, they claim that Islam has not delivered to their expectations. So when they turn the channel on and see Mohabbat TV, they hear a new message of Jesus, of forgiveness, of love, of acceptance.
Nazanin Bahastani manages the phone call center operations for the channel.
Persians are really thirsty for the truth. They want to know that who is this God that we talk about? Who is this Jesus? Is he real or is just a prophet?
To answer those and many other questions, the channel has deployed Farsi-speaking Christian counselors in different time zones around the world. Bahastani says they take on average between 8,000 and 10,000 calls a month from Iranians.
That's when, we open the subject, we preach the gospel, and so many give the heart. So many receive him.
But producing Christian programs for Iran is not without its challenges. You see, the bulk of Ansari's productions for the channel are done outside of Iran from multiple secret locations for safety and security reasons.
Our channel and our signals are getting jammed on a daily basis. It is true that the phone calls are being monitored and people who try to contact us may get persecuted from time to time.
In June 2011, a Christian man's house got raided by Iranian authorities as he was on the phone with a Mohabbat counselor. This is an audio recording of the conversation between the phone counselor and a member of the Iranian secret police as he tells the story of what happened when he broke into the house. It has never been released to the public until now, exclusively on CBN News.
فریاد نزن که من مسیحیم بیا دین مذهبی درست کن تو بازار آراش شده دردسری برای مردم درست کرده حالا در طول اینجا دستگیرش کردن والله علی قسم اون خط بز زدن یعنی مرده یعنی خون زیرش راه میکنه به خود به والله علی قسم من دلم برای میسوزه حاضر شماره من کیم آزادش کنم شما خانم شما برای جوانان ایران خیلی دردسر واقعا.
The young Christian man was reportedly killed shortly after the conversation. But Ansari says the threats are not stopping Iranians from watching the channel, which provides 24-hour Christian programming.
Remember, in Iran, there is no such a thing as a church, as you and I know, outside of Iran. So many Iranians who are curious, they find it easier, more private and more safe to be at home, at their own home, at the comfort of their home, watching the channel.
The official religion of Iran is Islam. Christians are officially less than half of 1% of the population. The overwhelming majority are Muslim. Christians are routinely imprisoned and labeled as threats to national security. Open Doors, a group that has served the persecuted church for decades, has ranked Iran number 9 on its list of 50 countries where persecution of Christians is most severe.
We have programming on a channel that is geared just towards that, to give them hope and encourage them. And yet tell them that, persecution is definitely a part of a Christian's life. When you become a Christian and you reside in a country that is not predominantly Christian.
The United Nations says at least 49 Iranian Christians are being held in jails. Among them is American citizen and Christian pastor Saeed Abedini, who is serving an 8-year prison term for refusing to recant his faith.
We really don't want to see any of them jeopardized or being persecuted, so we always tell them to act with wisdom and be wise about their new faith and the way they approach others.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
The harsh treatment of Christians is reportedly fueling the flames of church growth.
We're seeing a new season right now. There are so many people who are reaching out on their own accounts. It seems that they're not afraid. They just want to reach out and go beyond any kind of authority or limitation that may exist locally for them to just connect to somebody that they could relate to.
Ansari, a native of Iran, is encouraging Christians worldwide to pray for Iran, especially now as they and millions of Muslims observe the holy month of Ramadan.
Our goal is just to be out there and just tell them that there is another choice. The Prophet Jesus, whom they know very well through Islam, he's more than a prophet, that believing in him can bring a sense of hope.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Finally, Justin Otero is an ordinary little boy.
He's got lots of questions, and he thinks deep thoughts about the lives of bugs. Take a listen.
Did you see this beetle right here? I wonder what he eats. I know bugs fly through wings, but like, what moves the wings?
But this little guy is caught up in a scandal just because he said the first words that came into his mind, like most 4-year-olds do. Justin and his mom were at a donut shop in Monroe, Connecticut, when he asked another customer if she was pregnant. The woman wasn't too upset, but the shop owner has now banned little Justin from that store.
And no say she was pregnant, and I asked her if she was pregnant.
And my response was, "Oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed, I'm so sorry." She said, "Not a problem, I get it all the time with the kids in nursery school." She said, "He's not allowed in here." I looked around like, "Him?" She said, "Yeah," and I said, "Why? What did he do?" And she said, "He's rude."
Someone got mad because he's really not very nice.
Justin's mom says he's been asking her a lot of questions about why he's being banned. She says they will just take their money and their business elsewhere. Ouch.
Such an innocent little question from an innocent kid.
I asked my grandmother the same thing when I was 4.
I know. Who doesn't? Well, that's it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
Make it a fabulous Friday, everybody. See you Monday.